I'm here to talk about uh, 1 second. Can everyone see my screen? All
Yeah,
right.
I can see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm here to talk about today a pretty toxic compound known as 1,4-dioxane. Um, and this compound has been known for many years now, and it's often found in household products, cosmetics, shampoos, etc. And the issue with it could possibly cause cancer, but among that, it has many health effects. And there hasn't been much regulation. There hasn't been many restrictions on it. Um, but New York last year, put their foot in the door and started working towards mitigating the effects of this compound. So today I'll talk about a little bit about what the compound is. Just I mean, I'm sure some of you might know what it is, but I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about why it's super important now to join into this initiative that we're taking on with our initiative to restrict the compound in the state of New Jersey. And we're doing specifically the state of New Jersey for a number of reasons. But one is that I'm from New Jersey, and many other EJC members are from New Jersey, right? And so we thought it'd be a good initiative, especially following New York's bill to pass restrictions on 1,4-dioxane. We can lead an initiative to mitigate the effects of the compound. So this is specific to New Jersey, but we're hoping to expand. Um, so a little bit about what 1,4-dioxane is, what are its uses, what are its effects. So it's an organic compound. It's miscible in water, so it can easily, kind of travel and mix into the groundwater. It can travel through the soil, and that too. It's because it's a really strong chemical bond, so it can travel relatively long distances. And we've seen this with the compound PFAS. It's been all over the news, and EPA has started putting regulations, and there's so many different organizations that are understanding the effects of this PFAS compound. But 1,4-dioxane shares many traits to that, but it isn't getting that same recognition that PFAS is getting. And we believe that 1,4-dioxane is definitely a public health risk, and that there are things in organizations, government bodies can do to address the issue, but haven't been necessarily done. And so the uses of the compound, it's a solvent for resins, oils, waxes. It's a stabilizer in chlorinated solvents, and most importantly, it's a byproduct during the production of ethoxylated surfactants. So it proves which improve water solubility and provide stable foam. So uh, when manufacturing companies, so when manufacturers are creating shampoos and household products, they're going to go through that process, and a byproduct of that is production of 1,4-dioxane. And oftentimes the concentration of 1,4-dioxane may be really high, and um, maybe even beyond what certain government bodies may advise, or organizations may advise in these household products, and in turn can be a pretty big risk. And I'm gonna show you guys a little report that an organization had done on 1,4-dioxane, and so we'll get into that in a little bit. But its effects, there are a number of effects. Like lung, throat, nose, eye irritation, and in severe cases, it can all cause convulsions, collapse. And the EPA, after researching the compound, found out it's a moderate acute toxicity. So through dermal exposure, so you can get it through, your skin or your by inhalation. Um, and it's most at risk for workers in industrial sites. So you can imagine, right? These manufacturing areas where certain workers are exposed to these toxic compounds, right? They're going to be the ones most at risk. Then maybe not necessarily uh, certain other individuals, but it's also important to keep in mind that at a large scale and with thousands and millions of people in the United States, right? It can also uh, be a risk for people who use household products on a daily basis, right? Um, so I'll get a little bit into the New York case and then why New Jersey. I touched on it a little bit, but New York, there's an organization in New York called the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, and they over the past 3, 4, 5, 6 years were able to advocate successfully for the New York legislature to create a law mandating manufacturers to remove 1,4-dioxane from products, so restriction down to trace levels of 1,000 ppb parts per billion, and or one part per million. So for products sold in New York, right? So your shampoos, your cosmetics, they have to be down to 1,000 parts per billion by January 1st, 2024. So that process has already been done. Um, and the legislation was driven by the CCE report because they had done independent testing, right? And out of their testing, they found 65 out of 80 products independently tested for 1,4-dioxane. So I'm gonna pull this up. Hopefully it works. Okay, cool. So um, you could see that there were a number of government bodies and organizations saying, you can't go past 1,000 ppb, or that's where the restriction was set, right? You can imagine like 10,000 parts per billion, 17,000, 17 times the normal amount, or the amount that should be safe for individuals, right? There's so many different um, you know uh, products like shampoos, men's products, laundry detergent that contain the compound, but wasn't much being done against it or addressing the issue, right? So the New York legislation was the first of its kind, right, and the first of its nations to really address the issue and stop those effects. Uh, and we believe in New Jersey, as I mentioned, because we're from New Jersey, but at the same time, a lot of the manufacturing sites are located in the metropolitan area. So New York, Pennsylvania, a little bit, New Jersey, right? So these manufacturing sites have already changed a bit of their formula to accommodate for the bill. And so by advocating in New Jersey, they would be more lenient in restricting the compound because there already been steps taken to um, change the formula. And by advocating and pushing for the bill, then there can be more change that can happen. And we're following under the precautionary principle, and I believe that's a really important measure that and motivating factor for us, because why let a toxic compound continue to affect public health if there's an alternative, right? And even though there hasn't been an extensive amount of research for 1,4-dioxane, right? Uh, we just can't let it continue to affect public health, even though the risk may vary from person to person. And so it's super important that if there is a way to address the issue and find a sustainable alternative to that, that should be the first step. That should be the mindset that government bodies should intake. And especially the NJDEP already filed a lawsuit last year against chemical companies who let 1,4-dioxane affect waterways, affect drinking water systems, cosmetic. If when they were producing cosmetics, shampoos, those household products, and they let it just dump out in the environment without really any um, factors that you know uh, that mitigated the exposure of the compound, right? So the NJDEP filed a lawsuit, and it was for a good amount of money, and it shows that the NJDEP is willing to take action and willing to take steps towards addressing the issue because they themselves understand it's an issue. But and then the EJC is concerned that they haven't actually put a bill or any legislation out. And we understand that there's a lot of politics that go behind passing a bill, right? But if it's continuing to affect public health and NGTP understands that it's an issue, then the bill should be passed. So, why now? I already touched on it a little bit. But 1,4-dioxane was already a hazardous substance in CERCLA, the Superfund Act. OSHA has already put limits on the exposure level to 100 milligrams per liter. So, these government bodies are understanding that this is an issue, but nothing has really been done, right? And with the New York bill already passed, there's already momentum to address the issue, with New Jersey having talks about restricting the bill in 2021, but the bill wasn't passed. There wasn't really any movement with that. So we're trying to kind of spark that again. And New York isn't just the only state that has advised regulation, right? There are other states in the nation that have advised but not mandated, right? So the limit as to how much 1,4-dioxane can be found in groundwater and waterways. So you can see on the right, New York is at 1, Michigan is at 7.2, right? It varies by 1 microgram per liter, 7.2 micrograms per liter, right? They vary in the limit in groundwater, and New Jersey has already issued a zero point 0.4 limit in groundwater. So, there are states that are addressing the issue, right? But again, we're confused as to why there hasn't been an action passing the bill. So, why EJC? Why do we need help from the APHA? Why are we speaking out here today? Why am EJC speaking here today? Right. As I mentioned, 1,4-dioxane is toxic and it affects many low-income communities, right? You can imagine, manufacturing sites are going to be placed in overburdened communities, in communities generally of color, and that's because of this historical idea of sacrifice zones, right? Many chemical companies are already placed there due to a number of factors. One may being that it might be a lower cost to lease the land to these in these areas. So generally, you're going to see more manufacturing sites there, and that's going to affect these low-income communities. And realizing that, we as EJC understand that environmental justice is a major issue, and if there's something that we can do to address the injustice, then we're going to take those. We're going to advocate for that. And so what our goal is get the NJ legislator to listen to what our concerns are, to eventually, hopefully, draft a bill to put into the state legislator and get the necessary attention that it deserves. Because, PFAS has been a toxic compound that has been disputed over regulations and other issues for many years now. And 1,4-dioxane is still a persistent compound that there hasn't been much done against, right? And there are sustainable alternatives or not sustainable, sorry. There are alternatives to replace 1,4-dioxane as a solvent. So the manufacturing industry, they may have to change a little bit of their formula, but if they can accommodate, then the NJ legislator should put a bill into Congress, the NJ should put a bill into the legislature and get it passed, as New York has done, last year through the support of the Citizens Campaign for the Environment. And if the APHA, if people are willing to help us, we'd obviously be extremely happy if individuals would help support us in either be having contacts to different organizations who are already working on this issue, or have contacts to legislators who can help set up or arrange a meeting just to talk about the issue, or even organization support, even mentorship. Right? We're here for help, and by in any capacity. Um, and so I think that's all the slides I have. I didn't want to do too many slides. I just want to have more of a discussion now. So I'll stop sharing.